Gentlemen, thank you for joining me in the shop for a chuckle and a chortle, or at the very least, a cluck and a rueful head nod. We have here the fanciest, most reflective phone in the history of phones. You never would have believed it. I seen one of these at the Telus store. I thought, who in the bloody would ever buy something so jeezeless stupid as folding glass? Well, my buddy Clyde, that's who. Clyde. He used to run a channel called Pap Smear Red Ribbon Boys, and they go in the shop, him and his buddy Tomio, Japanese fella. It was tight and funny, but it just didn't take off. That's the problem, of course, with playing to the gallery, in the words of Ziggy Stardust. You never want to play to the gallery. You just make what you appreciate and the best art that you can make, and you put it up on the internet. It was just on the cusp of taking off. I swear. Just a couple more thrusts. But Tomio got tired of the YouTube grind, and Clyde pivoted and changed to Clyde Do Something. Now he's essentially political commentary here in Kanakistan. I myself, there's not much to comment on. Left wing, right wing, it's all feathers on the same bird. Not that my opinion matters one iota. Don't play to the gallery. $1,800 in the difference, I think he paid. Kanakistan kopecks, mind. Now, if I were of the Telus variety and flipping and flopping, moving around like a cockroach under light, trying to not warranty this, I would say right off the hop, well, of course it's broken, because you put a film over top of it. Now, Glar's been around since Christ was a cowboy, or dare I say, since Christ rose in the east and set in the west. I said it. Shh, don't tell anybody else. Never has glass been able to do thusly. Now, glass is an interesting material. It's brittle, but it's good in tension. Good in compression, rather. Horrible in tension. Let me draw you a diagram. Allow me, brothers, to square the circle in the dust with an oily rag. We will have a look at some esoteric technological chartings. Stress-strain diagram for, say, steel. Here is in tension. You pull it. It takes up the strain, and then levels off and just starts pulling apart. You can see it necking down until we get to the point, snap, where it breaks, or rather, it goes the other way. Now, glass, being a brittle material, doesn't do that. The stress strain climbs. No plateau. Snap! And that's why it's so unpredictable and scary when you're standing on the Empire State Building and jumping on that glass. You think of this stress strain. Also, it's terrible in tension. So in compression on this quadrant over here, quite large. In comparison on the tension side, now, don't use this for your statics and dynamics or strength of materials doctoral dissertation, mainly because this is copyright. But in tension, glass is something more like this. Oh, I did tension over here. I should have done, anyway. Yeah, as I said, standard rules applies, plus minus 50%. In tension, glass is very weak, also brittle. So the stress strain looks something more like this. Just a petit cœur, and then snap, breaks right off. That is why heuristically recognized brittle materials aren't good at bending, because there is a bias between the strength, like concrete. It's very strong in compression. It's very weak in tension. How do we fix that? Well, we add a material that's very good in tension and is not brittle, which is rebar steel. We add that, or we post-tension it, more to the point. So a brittle failure, a flexible material, here we have pasta. And if you look at the Smarter Everyday movie about this from like 10 years ago when they first invented, I used like. I try not to use like at all because reasons. You see how that broke? Now you can watch Destin's video about that when they had first invented slow-mo, and you can see why that breaks into 3 pieces. But you have a brittle failure there, and what happens is the one end, it breaks in one spot, and then toing, and the toing is so strong that it bends too far back the other way and breaks off. So spaghetti strands, full-length spaghetti strands always break, always, in 3 spots because of that toing effect. Where am I going with this? Okay, so you can make a more flexible glass by essentially adding rebar to it. Now you can't put steel in this, but what you can do is you can put this in some sort of tincture of thyme and hydroxide, calcium hydroxide. What this super high-tech glass is, it's not just sand melted down. Also, it's drawn, the super high-tech glass and your Gorilla Glass and at Alias, it gets drawn out. It's not floated on a bed of tin like the glass in your windows, molten tin, and they float the glass on top of that, so it's not perfectly flat. It's pretty flat, but it's not perfectly flat. This glass, they produce sheets and extrude them and use gravity to draw them out, and that drawing reduces the amount of little interstices, slip planes, and so forth in the glass itself. However, there are still some. Now, if you want a single crystal, as in the case for silicon wafers for confuser chips, you have to do a different process and you draw it out as a single crystal. Even then, you still get slip planes and interstices and so forth. Might be why, you know, when a cosmic ray hits your confuser, you can't look at the native, like the pictures with the boobies, you know. What were you talking about? Boobies. To this beautiful, expensive, or as fancy as piece of glass, we add some tincture of time. Of course, in reality, time doesn't exist, but practically and in our experience, of course, time exists. Why the hell would I drag my carcass out of bed to earn the beer tokens to feed my kids? They don't want you to know time doesn't exist. What we're using a metric to measure thermodynamics. One thing happens, then another thing happens. We put an arbitrary value to that one thing, to another thing happening, and that is at its basis level, a cesium atom, a radioactive cesium atom decaying. And then we build up from there. Seconds, minutes, hours. It doesn't exist, partner. If it doesn't exist, it answers so many unfathomable questions in science. Sometimes it just is. They don't want you to know that because you got to go get them shekels, partner. Okay, so let's just pretend time exists and we put this in a bath of the fella, that guy from the other movie. What's his name? The thing. Anyway, it's in a bath of chemicals. And over time, those chemicals go and fill these little voids. Now, since this was glass annealed, that is, all the internal forces were all discombobulated, and we aligned them all so they're all perfectly in balance. You know, the glass, sometimes that shatter glass, you get a little nick in it, and you're going to replace it, and you go you barely look at it, and it just goes, shatters everywheres. Okay, that's not what we want. We anneal that, and now that it's annealed, we put in some additional atoms, jam them into these slip planes and interstices and errors. And what that does is it preloads the material the same way that rebar does in concrete, the same way that post-tensioning works in concrete, where you take a cable and you stretch it out, and then you let the concrete cure, and you let go of the cable. Now the concrete is way stronger, more flexible, better all around. We do the same thing with glass. It's been seasonably cold of late. We gotta warm this up in order to get the adhesive to de-chooch so we can scan that off. I need to recant. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Of course, time exists. That was a bit of a bridge too far, I think. Of course, time exists because we perceive it to exist. You ever been hurtling down a mountainside and go OTB over the bars on your mountain bike? Partner, that 500 milliseconds is plenty of time to shit your drawers. Look at that larch. Melt your stovepipe. All that resin. Larch is tamarack. That is also why we perceive the procession of thermodynamics. One thing happens, another thing happens, another thing happens, another thing happens. We perceive that as time elapsing. That is also why we will never have a physical time machine. It's impossible because thermodynamics, the law, you can't go back to where you were. That chaos is already spread out in the universe. You can't go back. However, the good news is because time is, it's not an analogy, it's not an anachronism. That thing for the guy with the movie, abstraction, that's the word, abstraction. It only exists as an idea. It is a very, time as we perceive it is a very low level abstraction. That is very early on in our awakening consciousness. And I think maybe if we awaken to the fact that there is no time, might help us out. I'll try it out on the bank when the mortgage is overdue. I'll report back to you. You got the rent money yet? I've been trying, but this thermodynamics thing's just got me confuddled. Oh, I see. This is not a typical screen, monolithic screen. It's got some plastic embedded at the joint or at the fold. I see why they were so reticent to try and repair this now. Might take some magic hoobly boobly to get the... normally what I do for cell phone repair is I put a little votive offering in a bowl of rice. And then I just wait for the full moon, and then the Vietnamese fella from the mall comes down and fixes it while I sleep. It's miraculous. And that's racist, you tell me. Well, I guess it is. The guy's probably Laotian, but Laotian. We'll take the screen protector off anyway. Have a better boo at her. Oh, that's so flexible. Wow. Oh, it's coming off. It's coming off with the screen protector. Ugh. If I was a card player, I would say that's a bit of a tell. Oh, snappers. Look at that. What kind of new devilry is that? That's your... Wow, man. It's multi-layer, very thin, sputtered film of some metallic conductive compound. Same thing on this side. It's a little bit damaged on the basal platen. Come on, there you go. There you go. There you go. The picture is becoming clearer. Huh. So quite a violent, brittle failure. You see all the splintering around what he initially described as a tear, which I don't believe is a tear at all. Yeah, look at that. All kind of powdered toast in here. Uh-huh. Spanks for taking this on. It's been quite a runaround dealing with the broken device. So Toulouse did agree in the end to take it back and exchange it for something else. Here we see corporate, the idea of slip. The more intransigent they are and the more difficult they make your life, the more chance that you just give it up and forget about it. It's called slippage, and it's part of their financial acuity. I emailed you the return address. There is some cash in the box. This should cover shipping. Fellas were telling me, holy, look at this fella, just waving cash around like 100 air. It's not mine. It's Clyde's. I don't have the Q source here, but I assure you, in the text, the prelims, Clyde had mentioned that he figured he opened it too quick. Maybe it was cold, and he opened it too quick, and it tore. Well, it didn't tear, but quite possibly he opened it too quick. And I'll tell you why I think that. Comes back to the old spaghetti. Doyoyoing. If you open something too quickly, then well, good thing I got 3. Just so happens in the shop I have 3 conveniently located strings of spaghetti. So if you take something, you bend it, and it bends back too quickly, it's going to break because of the doyoyoing effect. That's why the spaghetti breaks in thrice every time. See that? You viddy that? It popped right off because the doyoyoing sent it flying. This is victim of the doyoyoing. Opened it too quick, and the rebound broke it off of the substrate. And without the substrate strengthifying it, it was free to doyoyoing, and it broke. I kind of question the design of a $1,400, $1,800 device. Like if you have something and you got to treat it like a Royal Dalton tea set. I don't know. I'm of the Bunny Huang opinion that the phone ought to be designed so you don't need a case. And I labored under that delusions for years until I got tired of replacing my phone, and now I have a case. But the thought is there, really. $1,800 device ought not need a case. And in this case, you can't have a case, can ya? Because it's folding. Can't have a case. Fascinating look at new designs. This is also part and parcel of why I no longer buy the fanciest, smanciest, latest Goo-Gaw. I'll let the early adopters go ahead and break it, and then they can see what went wrong and give us the good version. So thanks for watching. I'll send this back to you, Clyde. Take care, bud. Keep your dick in a vice.